Hello, YouTube and Facebook family. Today is February 28th, and we just finished closing out the SGS HSC middle school production of Little Mermaid, which allows me to now share and answer some questions and go over the process of some of the scenic elements that I was responsible for with the show and the tech that's involved with them. And actually, we started the build for this back in December, and it was going concurrently with 3 other schools that I work with and work for. So it was on again, off again, but actually I started on this project back over the summer when I did a production of Little Mermaid with Immaculata Summer Players. And I was the technical director for that show as well. We dealt with projections. That allowed me to light the show easier because I had a palette to go from. And then adding scenic elements, which really wasn't my responsibility then, but I wound up doing something with the shell for Ursula's table for when she's casting her spell and taking Ariel's voice, which I knew I would reuse for the middle school's production that was going to happen in February. That being said, I tucked it away and said, okay, when it's time, I will pull that out of my bag of tricks and I would pass it along to the production team and see how they felt about the projections and other ideas that I had. So in the interim, we went on to do our second production, or in this situation, my wife was in charge of props for the Villagers Theater's main stage production, adult cast of The Little Mermaid. And she, in props, was needed to fabricate 12 fish puppets, which I wound up helping out with. So it all started with some 2-inch XPS foam that you can get from Home Depot. And we cut it out on a homemade hot knife table that I fabricated. And from there, we glued the pieces of XPS together using PPG gripper primer paint. And you paint both sides, put it together, put weight on it, and let it sit for about 3 to 4 days because it needs extra time to cure since it's not exposed to air. So once that's done, then I use hot knife carving tools and go in and sculpt the basic shape of the fish. From there, I take a Dremel and sander and do some sanding. After that, I will go in with some spackle and clean up and fill any imperfections, final sanding, and then they get primed. At which point I could turn it over to the paint crew. In this situation, I had about a week's worth of sculpting into these fish and took ownership on them and airbrushed them myself. Once the airbrushing was done, we put dowels in the bottom and off they went to get glitter and eyeballs applied at the theater. They were a solid week of undertaking on my part that I wasn't planning on doing. So I insisted that when the show was over, they come back to me and I would be able to use them for the SGS production. So it kind of set the bar for what we wanted to do at SGS, but it also alleviated the need to have to reproduce this. So from there, I went to designing the set pieces that we were going to need. We would need a grotto. We would need a rock for Ariel, which we borrowed from the villagers. We would need some type of a rock for Scuttle, which I chose to do a dock. And initially, it was a little sketch that I put together. And from the sketch, I built the wooden platform using 4x4s, 2x4s, and some 1/2-inch ply. 3/4-inch hemp rope for the railings to make it look like a pier. And then the drawing sparked a creative friend of mine, dear friend, scenic artist Emily Rusinello, who questioned, oh, these will have lights on top. So, okay. Into FreeCAD, I start designing and come up with some dock lanterns to put on top of the pier. It was a nice piece. So what's next? In the process of thinking about Triton's throne, Ursula's shell, and the grotto, I was approached by the choreographer inquiring about the boat for Kiss the Girl. She said, we need to talk. I said, okay, about? She said, the boat. What about the boat? Well, what's it going to be? Are you going to make it out of cardboard, or is it going to... Oh, no, I'm going to build a wooden rowboat, and it'll be on casters. She's like, oh, it'll move. And I thought to myself, seeing another production over the summer of Little Mermaid, it was very distracting to watch a cast member move the boat around because it was a third head that didn't need to be in the scene. And I want to see Ariel and Eric have their conversation. And I thought if I had my druthers, it would move like the boat in Phantom of the Opera, which is done via remote control by an operator in the wings. And I thought, no, it really needs to be remote control. So when I said this to the choreographer, she looked me dead in the eye and said, you can do that? So I dove in, did a little bit of deep dive research to find out that the easiest way to move any significant weight around was going to be electric wheelchair motors. And they have several different types of interfaces that will talk to a standard RC remote control receiver and allow you to use a regular RC remote control. So with that knowledge and some 3/4 ply and the help of a parent from the middle school, Don Pence, custom home builder, and a phenomenal asset to the build team, we went in and we tackled will it work as a platform base. And as you can see, it zipped me around pretty quickly. And quite honestly, that was on 12 volts. The design for these motors is for a 24-volt system. So I was running at half the voltage, but at 100% speed. So I knew right then and there we were not running 24 volts. We would be running 12 volts, and I would be slowing it way, way down. So that gave us the platform. The next day, I went in with Don to the middle school, and we put the shiplap around the boat, and it became a functioning remote-controlled rowboat. At which point I remembered that at the Villagers, they had a lantern on the back of the boat. It didn't light up or anything, but it was there and it looked very cool. And I thought, well, let's go another step. So back to the CAD program, I start reconfiguring the lantern lamps that I designed to be hanging lanterns. And then I thought it would be nice, they would be candlelit. They would have to have a flame light inside of them. So I retrofitted a AC-powered flame light to run off of DC current, and then built the electronics to make that work via the lighting console. Part of my philosophy when it comes to theater tech is that, one, I want the kids to work on equipment that is sort of industry standard, if not exactly industry standard. I want them to be on ETC consoles. I want them to be on some form of a digital audio desk, so that this way, if they choose to pursue or move up through the ranks into high school and want to do tech, they are familiar with the technology that's going to be used. I also feel that anything that can be controlled should be controllable through that lighting desk or sound desk. This way you eliminate the possibilities of somebody forgetting a cue, missing a cue, timing being off. So I have to make controls and interfaces that will allow my props to talk to the lighting desk, or allow the lighting desk to talk to my prop. So I thought more about the boat, which now, quite honestly, I was ecstatic about. I thought, well, this is going to be a show-stopping moment. So what else can I do? Well, if you know the story, you know that moment that there should be a kiss in the lagoon is interrupted by the eels zapping the boat. I've never seen the boat get zapped anywhere outside of the movie. So I thought, well, what can I do there? How can I retrofit some pixie lights and make that happen? And this goes back to everything should be controllable from the lighting board or soundboard. Custom built an interface that would allow the lighting board to trigger the infrared remote, which would then fire off a quick round of fairy lights around the boat to match with the sound effect coming off of the soundboard.
Oh, no you don't. Quick, we block that kid.
that was the beginning of Prop Lights, the new offering of artistic expressions for custom DMX controls. And once we got to that point, it was like, okay, now I've got to step it up a notch. So we moved to Ursula's shell table, which I already had pixel lights built in to a fixture that I 3D printed that was going to go inside this vacuum form shell. And that kind of creates the magic when Ariel sings her voice over to Ursula. But looking at the fish that we had, I realized, no, I have to carve some more sea creatures. So in comes the 2 seahorses and the octopus. The seahorses were going to flank Triton's throne, which is a repurposed, we used it last year for the Wiz's throne, but I figured if we put an applique of a shell on the back and put some seahorses in the front, that would give it a refresh enough that there was no sense in completely rebuilding something that we could repurpose and reuse. Although the flame lights that we had on the Wiz's throne wouldn't be proper for Triton's throne. So we opted to go with some bubble towers from Amazon. And again, not designed to be controlled via the lighting board, more homemade electronics and assembling of different components to allow me to, via DMX, control the bubbles and the pixel lights that trim the throne. And my dear friend Emily Rusinella came in and made the seahorses come to life. And that's Triton's throne. Ursula's shell. I love Emily. I love her dearly. I had the octopus carved. I was showing it off to her, and she's like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. And you know what would make it really cool? If the eyes lit up. Okay, so back to CAD, and we work on making eye sockets and lenses and putting in DMX and RGB lights that I can control from the lighting board with some LED tape light that can go behind the tentacles to give a backlighting effect. And you can see what we came up with here. So now on top of the pixel lights inside the shell for the magic, we have the eyes that I can illuminate independently. So if you want to make it look like it winks, you turn one eye off, turn it back on, it look like the octopus winks, and then you can do whatever you want with the lights behind the tentacles. As you can see, we chose to just do a random pattern to just make it look like some magic was happening.
Now, do you want Princey Pooh or not? 5, 4, 3, 2.
Okay, yes, I'll do it.
Great. Now, Beluga, Seruga, come winds of the Caspian Sea. Larynxis, glossitis, lamax, laryngitis, la voce to me. Now sing your voice over to me. Keep singing! Keep singing! Now swim for your life, human child!
So that was that. The grotto was the biggest thorn in my side because I didn't know where I wanted to go with it. I knew I wanted to have a geyser built into it, which is a vertical smoke effect, but I didn't know how I was going to be able to power that. I didn't want to have an extension cord run across the stage floor because that's just a trip hazard and something else for the running crew to get tangled up on trying to move the piece on and off. So again, Don Pence comes to the rescue and says, hey, I've got this battery inverter. It should work. And we tried it, and it worked phenomenally. And the result, you can see here, the test of it, and then you can see it in action.
Ariel, I miss your mother just as much as you do, but I am still the king, and you are not to go to the service ever again. Am I clear? I'm just trying to protect her, Sebastian.
She'll be all right, Saya. Just give him time.
Lastly, the big prop that is in my opinion, it's a quintessential prop in this show, is the item that's coveted, which is the Trident. And we opted to go with the DC Comics Aquaman Trident because it's way cooler than just a 3-pronged trident. So I started off printing that, and I printed it in a gold PLA, which looked really pretty, but it did not chemically weld together well. You saw the seams. It just wasn't a pretty weld. And then I realized I wasn't going to be able to paint the rest of the trident to match. So I scrapped the gold print, went to white ASA, which I knew I could weld, sand, get it completely smooth, prime it, paint it, and it would all be uniform. And then in doing that, I thought, well, wait a minute, it's got to do magic. Everything else is doing some kind of magic. The Trident has to do magic. So how can I put fairy lights on the Trident? The challenge there was designing a way to take a rectangular pack that held 3 AA batteries and get it into the inner diameter of a piece of 3/4 inch PVC pipe, because that's what the staff was going to be made from. So back to FreeCAD. And honestly, I am not a CAD designer by any stretch of the imagination. I sketch stuff out on paper. I use a digital caliper to get my measurements so that they're accurate. And then I learn the techniques necessary to take that drawing and create a 3D model that I can create an STL file from and then actually print on the 3D printer. So it's a need to know basis. Yeah, that's how I'm building my CAD skills, if you will. So I designed the end cap for the PVC, and then I realized, I need a way to hide a switch into this so that Triton could turn it on and off. So I designed and printed a hilt, again, using the ASA, and that hilt held a little momentary rocker switch with an on and off position, because the remote for the fairy lights have a separate button for on and a separate button for off. So it was a bit of a challenge, but that all of those electronics got built into a black ASA sleeve that slides into the bottom of the Trident's shaft, and then the end cap goes on the bottom to protect it, and that's where the wireless transmitter sits. So when you look at it, it's pretty elegant. By itself, it's a pretty impressive looking prop, but when you turn it on, well, you can see the kids were very excited to have it. So those are the items that I've done for this show. I love the opportunity to be creative, to take it to the next level, to see, well, how far can we push this and make it be something that's memorable for the kids and for the audience. And from the responses we've gotten, I'm very happy that I took the time that I did. If you have any questions, please comment or reach out. And yeah, I'm available for hire too, obviously. So I hope you enjoyed it. I know this was a long video, but I did a lot. I did a lot for this show as far as the tech was concerned. And yeah, there's even the smoke that you'll see in the scene. I created a low-lying smoke machine that uses a regular chemical smoke machine, like your Halloween fogger style smoke machine, and it uses an ultrasonic mister to keep the fog low, so there's no need for dry ice. It's very cost effective to run. I had been working on this for about a year, and in the process I tried to use it for a pilot production that I was involved with for Beetlejuice Jr. with Pixie Dust players up in Millburn. And the one pushback I got was that the noise from the fog machine was too loud. I'm standing right next to it so you can hear the noise that it makes, but I just want you to see, as long as I hold the button, or as long as we leave it on, like for a scene, you could do it scene by scene, I wouldn't leave the mister and the fan pump on beyond the need for the cue, because it does condensate in the tube, and it's something that, like at an intermission, depending on use, I would empty it out. So in doing some research, I was able to find an individual who created a silencer, if you will, for fog machines for use on Broadway. And I had to buy a whole big book to get the actual details of this one component. But the book is fantastic. It's called Technical Design Solutions for Theater, and it's a wonderful book to have. The gentleman who designed the silencer did it with 2 different types of PVC, drilled holes, and then spray adhesive foam to hold the 2 pieces together. There was an inner pipe and an outer pipe. I figure this is another opportunity for me to get that 3D printer working. So I modeled the silencer with the 3D printer, printed it out, and had no idea how it would work. I am ecstatic to say it is absolutely whisper quiet, and using a very cost-effective fogger, I can run it until it runs out of fog fluid. It doesn't have that typical 20-second burst, and then it stops to reheat, and 20-second burst. Then this thing will just run until it's empty. And again, you can't hear it. You might hear a quick psst the first time it starts up, but that's it. So anyhow, that's the story of some behind-the-scenes tech from SGS HSC's production of Little Mermaid. And I hope you found this interesting. Again, any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I'll get back to you. Thanks. Have a wonderful day.